All right, so we're diving into Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo,
Yeah.
picking up the action from chapter 20.
Okay.
And you have smartly chosen key excerpts for this deep dive,
Aha.
which tells me you want to get right into the thick of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Dumas doesn't waste any time
Right.
in setting the stage with, a story that's really fueled by ambition, jealousy, ultimately revenge.
Yeah, and right away we meet Edmond Dantès,
Yeah.
our dashing young sailor,
Yeah.
returning home to Marseille after a successful voyage aboard the Pharaon.
Yes.
He's not just some lucky first mate. He's clearly skilled, respected by the crew. Anyone can see this guy's on the fast track to becoming captain.
And that's where the trouble begins.
Right.
The higher you climb, and Dumas introduces us to Danglars. He's the ship's supercargo. And this guy is just simmering with resentment.
Yeah.
Every bit of praise that Dantès gets, especially from the shipowner, Monsieur Morel,
Right.
just fuels Danglars' envy.
It's like watching someone pour gasoline on a fire.
Yeah. And you just know that any minute now, something is going to explode.
Absolutely.
Especially with Fernand and Caderousse kind of lurking in the background. Two, characters who were supposed to be Edmond's friends.
But this is where Dumas is a master, right?
Mm-hmm.
He takes these seemingly simple relationships, injects them with ambition,
Right.
jealousy. Caderousse, while claiming to be a friend, advises Edmond to kind of play the game, to flatter their superiors for advancement. And Edmond's response is so telling.
Yeah.
He says, I hope to be captain without that,
Which, in any other context, might seem admirable, right? Hard work, integrity, all that.
Right.
But in this, cutthroat world that Dumas creates, it's like you can practically hear the alarm bells going off.
Yeah, Dante's refusal to play by those unspoken rules,
Right.
coupled with, his genuine talent, his charm,
Yeah.
makes him a threat to those who lack his moral compass.
Right.
He's unwittingly painting a target on his back.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of targets, we can't forget Fernand, who's head over heels for Mercedes,
Right.
the woman Edmond is about to marry.
Yes.
It's a classic love triangle, but with the added weight of the betrayal that's already kind of simmering beneath the surface.
Mercedes, despite her affection for Fernand, doesn't mince words.
Right.
She tells him straight up, my heart belongs to another.
Yeah.
And it's a gut punch for Fernand.
Right.
And fuels his resentment even more.
Okay, so we've got professional envy, we've got this romantic rivalry, there's this, healthy dose of foreshadowing brewing.
Yeah.
It's like that moment in a horror movie right before the jump scare, and then, bam, Dumas hits us with the engagement announcement at this celebratory dinner.
And the way he describes the reactions around that table is just pure gold. Fernand is described as being in agony.
Wow.
Danglars turns pale as his scheming mind goes into overdrive.
Right.
Even Caderousse, fueled by cheap wine and guilt,
Right.
almost confesses to the plot that he's now entangled in.
I find it fascinating that Caderousse even entertains the thought of confessing.
Right.
Like he recognizes the gravity of the situation,
Right.
but he chooses to stay silent.
Hmm.
And it makes you wonder if things could have been different,
It's that, the insidious nature of silence in the
Right.
face of injustice
Yeah.
allows evil to flourish. And speaking of evil,
Yeah.
Danglars' chilling thought at that moment gives me shivers. He thinks to himself, Dantes is in the hands of justice, and she will take her own.
Oh, it's practically giddy at the thought of Dante's downfall.
I know, right?
But here's the thing. It takes more than just personal grudges to orchestrate this kind of downfall.
Right.
This is where Villefort enters the picture. This figure of authority who initially seems like Dante's saving grace.
But Villefort is a study in contradictions.
Right.
Right. He's got this connection to this shadowy figure named Noirtier.
Mm-hmm.
And this connection becomes instrumental in Dante's fate.
And it all hinges on this letter implicating Dante's in a Bonapartist conspiracy. You'd think someone in Villefort's position, this beacon of justice, would investigate thoroughly.
Well, this is where Dumas cleverly weaves in the political climate of the time.
Right.
The Bonapartists, supporters of Napoleon, are seen as a threat.
Right.
And being associated with them is incredibly dangerous. This is the lever that Danglars uses against Dantès.
Right. And tragically, Dante's, ever the trusting soul, believes Villefort will be his advocate.
Right.
He even says, Monsieur, you have been rather a friend than a judge.
Right.
Little does he know.
Little does he know, Villefort's driven by something far more personal dare I say, self-serving than justice. It's a tough spot for Villefort. He's got this evidence, right?
Yeah.
That could ruin his own father, who we find out is a Bonapartist.
Yeah.
It's like this moral crossroads, where his sense of duty clashes with his ambition and the safety of his family.
And Dantès, unfortunately, becomes the sacrificial lamb in all of this.
Exactly. Instead of upholding justice,
Yeah.
Villefort chooses self-preservation.
Right.
Throws Dantès into the Chateau d'If,
Right.
condemning him to basically a living death within those walls.
It's a chilling reminder that too often power trumps integrity.
It really is.
It's heartbreaking because Dantès put so much trust in Villefort, believing him to be this man of honor.
I know.
And to think this all happens because of a letter.
Right.
This single piece of paper that sets off this chain of events.
That letter, it's more than just a plot device.
Right.
It symbolizes the fragility of freedom, especially in a society where there's so much political intrigue,
Right.
suspicion, One whisper, one accusation can shatter a life.
Yeah.
Especially when it's someone in a position of power like Villefort.
It shows how easily those in power can manipulate things
Absolutely.
to serve their own needs.
Yeah.
And while Dantès is, trapped, physically and metaphorically, in the depths of Chateau d'If,
Right.
what happens to the people who orchestrated his downfall?
Well, this is crucial, I think, to understanding Dantès' eventual transformation. He's going through unimaginable suffering in prison.
Right.
And his enemies are living their best lives.
Ugh.
His own father, actually consumed by grief,
Wow.
passes away,
Oh, my God.
unable to cope with his son's fate.
Wow, so the very people who betrayed him are now thriving.
Yeah, and it's like their happiness is built upon Dante's misery.
Right. That's got to be torture.
It really speaks to, I think, the kind of complex moral tapestry that Dumas weaves,
Yeah.
Take Fernand, for instance. He's not purely evil.
Okay.
He loves Mercedes, maybe even believes that she would have eventually chosen him.
Right.
But his ambition,
Yeah.
his desire for social standing allows him to justify his actions. He
Yeah.
becomes the Count,
Okay.
which his title is just dripping with irony.
It's like he's trying to outrun his own guilt
Exactly.
by accumulating titles.
Yeah, and then there's Danglars.
Right.
His avarice knows no bounds.
Yeah, right.
He becomes this wealthy banker.
Yeah.
His fortune, a testament to his ruthlessness. It's almost too much to bear.
I know. It's tough.
What about Caderousse, though?
Yes.
He has to face some consequences, right?
Well, Caderousse, he's a study in the corrosive nature of
yeah.
guilt
Okay.
and greed.
Right.
He doesn't quite achieve the success of Fernand or Danglars. Instead, he's just plagued by this misfortune, right?
Right.
His life is just a downward spiral.
So even though he wasn't the mastermind,
Right.
his silence still had a price.
Exactly. And it's through Caderousse that fate, or maybe it's just Dumas' masterful plotting,
Right.
takes this intriguing turn. Years later,
Okay.
he has this seemingly chance encounter
Okay.
with a mysterious priest.
Hold on, wait a minute. This
Yeah.
priest is, don't tell me, is it Dantes?
Dantès is back,
He's back.
but he's transformed.
Right.
He's no longer that naive young sailor who left Marseille all those years ago.
Right.
He's back as the Count of Monte Cristo.
Wow. And he's not back to forgive and forget, I'm guessing.
No, this is where things get really interesting. So Dantès is back in Marseille. He's this mysterious count, and he's got a plan, but it's not some, brute force revenge, is it?
No, it's much more intricate than that.
Yeah.
He uses their own vices against them.
Right.
Danglars, he's consumed by greed, right?
Right.
So he's easily manipulated, Fernand, so desperate to, keep that social standing. He's vulnerable to attacks on his reputation.
Right.
And Villefort, he's obsessed with appearances.
Right.
So he just crumbles when his facade starts to crack.
Like Dantès is holding up a mirror,
Yes, exactly.
forcing them to confront their actions.
A perfect example of this is
Yes.
how he handles Danglars' downfall with the Spanish stock market.
Right.
Feeds him this false information.
Right.
Leads him into making all these terrible investments.
Right.
And it's not just about the money, though, is it?
No.
It's about shattering that illusion of control that Danglars has.
Right.
Exposing that emptiness.
It's a total mind game.
It is.
And what about Fernand? His downfall is almost Shakespearean in its tragedy.
Dantes understands that. To truly break Fernand,
Yeah.
he has to expose the truth about his past, how he betrayed Ali Pasha to get his title to marry Mercedes.
Right. And that's got to be devastating for Fernand, not just because he loses his status, but because he's forced to confront what he's done.
Exactly. The hollowness of his achievements.
Yeah. And Villefort, he's like the most complex out of all of them.
He is. And Dantès finds the secret.
Right.
So dark, so buried, threatens to destroy everything.
It's like this is where you really see Dumas' understanding of psychology.
It is.
Villefort, this dispenser of justice, is haunted by his own past.
And of course, Dantès uses this, to expose Villefort's hypocrisy. It leads to his humiliation, tears apart his family.
It seems like almost Dantès becomes this avenging angel. But does he find peace?
That's the question, isn't it? Dumas doesn't make it easy for us.
Right.
He gets his revenge, but at what cost?
Right.
Has he become a monster?
Wow.
Or is there redemption when he shows mercy to Haiti?
It's amazing that Dumas leaves us grappling with this.
The Count of Monte Cristo, it's a story that stays with you, It's adventure, betrayal, revenge.
Right.
But it's also just this profound exploration of what it means to be human.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You've given me so much to think about.
I encourage you to keep exploring it, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the stories that you love.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.